30's been feeling super heavy lately. I think I'm gonna drop it. Drop it to 25 so I can do 12 reps. One thing I've been feeling lately though, since I started this bulk, which I know this says day 3, but technically I've been starting my like caloric bulk about 2 months ago. And I don't know if this is just me, but my lymph nodes and in my armpits, it started with this one and it was a little bit questionable because it was a little bit painful, but now it's moved over to this side and it's not painful, but it's uncomfortable and I can feel it. I was like laying down in bed and I felt like my pump was just like pulsing. So I quickly messaged chat to figure out what that was about. Apparently it could be anything ranging from nothing at all to obviously cancer. So I'm gonna wait it out a few days and see, what the deal is. But at some point I will go to the doctors and check it out. But I wonder if that's been happening to anybody else. I've never heard of anything like this. But chat said it made sense for the fact that I'm bulking and the body's changing. So I'm gonna go with that for a little bit, and maybe in a month or so, go get it checked out if it keeps bothering me. All right, we're gonna go for 8. Okay. All right, well, it says to do 10. I did 10. So let's go ahead and stick it to 10. All right, now I just started it and jumped right into the workout. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to day 3 of the bulk. And yeah, like I said earlier, today's push. This is gonna be quite an exhausting push day. The goal is to hit a couple new PRs, not for PR's sake, but for hypertrophy's sake. All right, now we're gonna stick it with 30. It's not worth it, worth the risk of injury. One thing that I'm trying to do, which you can probably see, is keeping the dumbbells in type of, a V at an angled shape rather than just straight up. What this does is just alleviate some tension or pressure on the joints, elbow and shoulders. It also just feels a little bit more natural than just going like this, straight all the way up. All right, so it's actually really good that I didn't try to do 35. I've not graduated 30, so I just did 6, which is actually good because this was supposed to be a drop set here. Next, we've got tricep dips. I've never done it with these. Usually I have the actual taller spot, so might feel a little awkward at first. the day that I was recovering from my mishap with the milk, I ended up just doing 2 of each exercise rather than I ended up doing 2 sets of each exercise for my push day. So today it feels like, you know, a bit more than what I'm used to. But truthfully, when I'm at the gym and I have everything that I need, I'm banging those workouts out, no problem. It's really the moment it's a new gym and they don't have the equipment that I know, or don't have the equipment that I'm used to. Like this leg press, wild, wild. I've never felt like that, anything like that in my life, but it felt great. Another thing that I'm realizing is not much muscle soreness. There was one day I had a little tweak in my neck, or my upper back. But as far as muscle soreness, it's just pretty much non-existent, and that's just telling me that it's time to change volume. And right now, since we're getting back into it, maybe next week will be a day where I start changing the amount of volume that I'm doing. But I'm also remembering that, for a full 48 hours, I wasn't able to eat solids. In a 24-hour period, I wasn't able to eat at all. So, taking it slow when you're coming back from having to recover from like an illness or a sickness, it's really, really important to get your body the recovery it needs so that you can come back stronger rather than injuring yourself and then having to take an additional break. All right, let's do this. Whoa. All right, so now we're doing 30, 12 reps. I think the incline on this bench is a little bit too low, but I feel like if I move it up, it might be a little too high. I need somewhere in the middle, so we're just gonna stick with what we've got here. Oh, man. While I sit here, I noticed that I was trying to heavily focus on just these weights, but my mind was being preoccupied with some outside stuff. And it's just a reminder that, while you're trying to change and develop, not only can you not always bring everyone you want with you, some people just deserve to be on their own path. And as difficult as it can be sometimes, trying to constantly put yourself first, choosing yourself every day, and not looking for whatever feels like will be the quickest relief, instant gratification. This is just a reminder that it's not ever going to be something that's easy. Waking up at 5 a.m., doing some of your tasks, heading to the gym, eating, doing some work. It's always, there's always something that you've got to be doing. And when you look around, and you see the people that are in your corner, you really want to make sure that they're the right people. Oftentimes we just bring people along just because they've been there. I've known this person for X amount of years. We've done this. It's been X amount of months, and change really just only happens while putting one foot in front of the other. Just one. You don't have to run. You don't have to skip. You don't have to hurdle over to make change, but you do need to take a step. And sometimes you do, take a step backwards. Sometimes you fall, and that's okay. It's part of the journey. But what's not part of the journey is keeping the things that are no longer working or serving you. And I'm mostly just talking to myself right now as I realize, the old version of me really wants to quit all the time, all the time. As soon as I do anything, I just want to quit. But the times that I have quit something, unless they're for injury, sickness, something like that. But if it's pure laziness or pure emotion that's driving the decision to quit something, not only does it become regrettable, you sit in that space and you realize where you could have been if you used that time to do what you said that you were going to do. And, there is a while back, I was training for a marathon, and I was all in it. I was 100% all in it. And I decided at some point that I needed to focus even more, go even harder. And I had a new relationship, so it was kind of balancing these two. And I said, okay, let's not do so much of the weight training. We'll just focus fully on the running. And then I'll have some more time for my relationship. But what ended up happening was that because of my conditioning was supplying and helping my runs and giving me the foundation that I need in order to reduce the risk of injury, I ended up having joint problems. I ended up having all these different issues, and I didn't end up doing the marathon. And I didn't feel like, oh, I failed. It was a huge, amazing experience that I'd never, ever planned on. I never, ever said that I ever wanted to run a marathon. I was never interested in doing anything like that. But for about 6 months, I was running. I was running every day. I mean, at one point, I even hit my 14 mile, and I said, oh shit, I can really do this. And it was wild because I was a person who I never ran. I was never interested in running. But what ended up happening was that I sacrificed my goal for something that was kind of just a shot in the dark. And that's exactly what it was. That relationship ended not too long ago. But my relationship with the gym, my relationship with fitness has only gotten stronger. And I had another relationship that was, this was a friendship. It was a close friend of mine that when I started this whole journey, when I started this whole running journey, it seemed like it was bringing up a lot of insecurities for this person. They would hit me up and be like, oh my God, why are you posting that? Like, nobody cares. Me and so were laughing because, you're like that guy from The Office who's like posting their runs. And it's like, nobody cares about your runs, Jeff. I'm like, well, you're smoking weed and cigarettes and vaping as much as you breathe. And I was supposed to care about what you and your smoker friend think when I'm a person who obviously cares about health and fitness. And instead of making the tough decision of letting go of a person that was not helping me to get to my goals, I sacrificed my own self-respect and said, no, this is somebody that I've known for X amount of years. I want to help them through this. You can't help somebody that's not willing to help yourself. You can't help somebody who's not willing to help themselves. And I had this lesson come to me over and over and over again. It happened to me 3 times. And finally in February was kind of, my fed up period. My relationship with my ex dissolved. Luckily, the roommate that I had at the time, who was a horrendous person, ended up moving out after I, gave them a 30-day notice. And then my close friend decided to take a step back because I wasn't showing up as the emotional support person that they needed. And I just remember thinking, the audacity. And also, thank you. Thank you for releasing me from this obligation that I felt that was no longer purposeful to me. And let's just, just tell you that when you are doing something that is scientifically proven to be beneficial to not only your mental health, your physical health, but also your future goals, sacrifice everything else. Sacrifice everything else, because what's going to become the problem is that not only will you become resentful of the people that stood in your way, which was actually just you in your way because you couldn't make the hard decision, but you don't get your goal. You put it off. And all for people that are willing to put themselves off and minimize their own goals and sit into a life that is not serving them simply because it's what is comfortable. But the problem with comfort is that's a subjective thought. It's the idea of that present moment of what you find comfortable. Right now, I've never been more comfortable in my life. Being where I need to be right now, working out for another, let's see how many more sets I've got. I've got 4 more exercises and 11 more sets. And although I'm not jumping for joy and gleeful and, crying out of hysterical happiness, I feel exactly where I need to be in this present moment. And as I look around, all I see is me, 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 me. All I hear is myself. And all we have really is ourselves. At the end of the day, that's who you end your life with. And although you begin your life with, many people around you, and you'll probably end your life with people around you as well, you have and will always have yourself. And when you refuse to give yourself what you need in order for you to get closer and closer to who that person's meant to be, you're only hurting yourself. Those people, the people that left my life that I opened the door for and I said, thank you so much for being here and, good luck with your journey, they're on their own life's path. You know, I'm not meant to be there 24/7, 365 for them. I'm meant to be here for me. And in turn, being here for me, I open up community, I open up space for others going through something that's similar as myself, similar as my difficulties, any of the journeys that I've been through, to get to the place where they want to be for themselves. And this is just kind of like a promise to myself that I'm willing to sacrifice the feeling of temporary comfort for temporary loneliness if it means that I get closer and closer and closer to who I really want to be in this life. And unfortunately, that doesn't mean dragging people along who don't want to be part of my life journey. And what that means for me is somebody who's not holding my torch, who has their own torch and they're just walking alongside me. And, maybe we cross paths and we go different directions, but we end up coming back together and then, diverging again. But to hold your torch and to hold somebody else's and then have this third one and then put this under here and then now you're going to end up burning yourself alive. And that's just not worth it. So a friend of mine asked me, are you sad now that you've lost this friend of yours that, if you've known for at least I think we're going on 11, 12 years. And I said, no. I lost that friend back in May when they decided to say all that mess of insecurities to me as if it was something that I was supposed to tag along to. And the fact that they didn't see it so much was the pivotal moment in my mind where I noticed that, oh, this is no longer my friend. This is somebody else that is dealing with something that I don't fully respect. And that's okay. It didn't seem like they respected what I was trying to do anyway. So let people think you're whatever you are. As long as you're putting yourself first and you're not hurting anybody and you are truly intentionally moving in a direction that's supposed to serve you in the most positive light possible. Let them go. Let them go. Open the door for them. Walk them out. Walk them out gracefully and say thank you so much for being here. I learned so much. That's really all you can do. But to hold spite and to hold anger, it's normal to feel saddened. But I think oftentimes when we feel saddened, there's a little bit of delusion involved in there. Because if we break down every nook and cranny of what broke down the relationship, you can see, oh, no, I was really willing to do so much, and this person was showing up with what they thought was, I guess, what I needed, but in turn was far from it. Acts of services is definitely a love language, and words of affirmations and, whatever else. But at the end of the day, if you start losing respect for a person that has decided to be part of your life, you are going to start losing respect for the relationship that you've built as well. And that's only going to break down over time. You can't really repair that unless you decide to repair that together. And that takes a lot of work. And I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of people are not interested in doing the work, not for themselves. So why would they do it for the relationship you have with them? All right, let's go for it. We've got 12 reps. Well, let's do this. Yeah. There's nothing like removing yourself of responsibility that's not yours to bear and heading to the gym and releasing it out into the world, you know. All right. I'm going to end that one for the inclined bench press. And we're going to go over to our lateral raises. It's quite unfortunate. I feel like I've been doing 15 pounds of these lateral raises for the last several months, but I did start at 10 and we are at 15. So there's definitely something to be said about that. Now, when I do these lateral raises, I like to do a full ROM. Something about it just makes it feel a little bit less tiring. Whew. All right. There's definitely a couple cheat reps in there, but I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it, but I'm just going to say that we did 10 instead of 12, I think I was supposed to do. Unless I did do 10. I'm just going to put down 10. All right. Feels pretty good. I think I'm gonna add 5 pounds because we can clear 16 pretty easily. I'm thinking that I probably could do 20. So now if I do 45, 16 should feel just about doable. without leaving too much in reserves. Because I think I've reached a point where I can come close to fatigue, or sorry, where I can come close to failure without the risk of injury outweighing the benefits. So I'm coming close to a year of prioritizing my fitness. Once June comes around, so just about when the summer starts, which is pretty freaking wild. But yeah, time goes by pretty slowly and pretty quickly when you're tracking your fitness. I feel like when I was not doing much, when I was just gaming all the time, smoking weed all the day, like every day, barely going out, barely seeing friends, socially awkward. Time went by super quick. And I guess I actually kind of liked that, I wasn't too motivated for life, but now that I've got goals and trying to meet deadlines and have expectations, it's like, it's pretty wild how we perceive time sometimes. All right, this is gonna be my last set. And then we can keep this angle for face pulls. Now, so I might not do too much of a rest here. I feel like my face pull strength is pretty great. So I just put it over to 60 and we'll do 12 sets. Alright, 2-minute rest. It's funny, I'm listening to a podcast right now, and it's kind of something I've been trying to tell people for the last couple of years here. Unresolved trauma is unresolved trauma. And what ends up happening is that people end up taking out their trauma onto other people, projecting their own insecurities onto, whoever, I guess, has an open ear for it. One of the reasons why I've never been like a huge fan of therapy is simply because, I guess I've always been able to recount the events that were less favorable in my life and not make it part of my identity. It's mostly been like, yeah, that weird, annoying, and negative thing happened, but it didn't really mean anything about my character or who I was as a person. It just meant something about the other person there, and how I responded to it was a reflection of who I was. And I feel like a lot of people don't really understand that last part. I use this analogy, which, I've never been put in this position, so I don't know how I would really react to it. But I think the principle is there, regardless of my experience or not. if somebody does something to you or somebody that you love, the way that you respond to that, being that it was a negative situation, says more about you than it says about them. It could have been that they literally took a knife and stabbed you in the back. And maybe in self-defense, you grab a knife and you stab them in the back as well. But to stab them in the back and then the face and then the eye and then the neck, and then that's just overkill. That's actually legally overkill, and becomes some sort of passion-induced situation, which says more about you than it says about the other person. Now, to bring it more to like something that most people have the experience with is, let's say somebody calls you a name, says something about you. What a lot of people with unresolved trauma and insecurities do is they lash out. They hold up a mirror and they do the same exact thing back. But what would be the wisest thing to do is to reflect back to the person what it is that they just explained to you, what they just said to you. I've dealt with a lot of people with unresolved trauma, we'll just say that, and a lot of projection. And it never really changed the way that I viewed the world necessarily. It changed the way that I interacted with the world, though. And I've always been a person who enjoys making connection with people. But over time, after this kept happening to myself, I ended up feeling as though I had to recalibrate the way that I interacted with the world. And now that I've come onto the other side and realizing that changing the way that I interact with the world wasn't necessarily the best tactic there are boundaries you can set in place for yourself that you don't have to explain to people, by the way. And it just sets a standard for how you will be in your life. But there will be times, and I'm sure there's many more waiting for me. There will be times where people will try to use and abuse the idea of you, but it's important for you to understand who you are fundamentally. And again, how you react in those type of situations says more about you than it says about them. Because, they did what they just did. So that's done. That's said and done. They're spoken for. But who are you now that that's been done, How are you going to show up in that situation? And will you wake up the next day proud or with regret? Or will you just numb yourself? I feel a lot of people oftentimes numb themselves from that. And it basically inhibits them from being able to grow. So, all right. I can't tell if I already did. If this is my third or fourth set of face pulls. Either way, we're gonna do one last one just to be sure. Give it a 2-minute rest. But yeah, if you're the type of person that works and works and works and works and works and has never sat down and reflected on your past, therapy might be a great idea for you if you're having some issues come up and they're kind of repeating. But if you're the type of person who's sat and reflected and reflected and reflected and reflected and reflected and reflected, and it just brought you more and more misery. It's brought you more into a state of depression, and it's created more insecurities for yourself. I mean, nothing changes if nothing changes. Insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And I think oftentimes we sit in a space that we've created for ourselves and poke and point fingers and push blame, and all we do is enable excuses. We validate a reason for why we are the way that we are, even if it's not aligned with who we want to be and what we're trying to become. And, sadly, if you are in a position and you think that doing the same thing and wallowing about the same couple of issues you've been through is going to change anything, very slow and painful death to realization that it's not. So, all right, we got our last, there's a tornado in LA apparently, but we're in San Francisco, so, okay, last set. All right, we killed it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.